So this is the part of the vlog where we're excruciatingly honest, and I am going to be talking openly about every part of my life. So viewer discretion is advised. If you know me personally, some of the stuff that I'm going to be going over in the next couple of nights and through the compilation of this video is going to be pretty intense, and I would like to really drive the point that nothing that I am expressing is at the fault of anyone else, nor do we necessarily have to discuss it, nor am I upset with anyone at all. These are all just reflections of how I'm feeling, and I do recognize that the way that I feel sometimes isn't what is true, and this is basically just going to be a giant unpacking of that. So viewer discretion is advised if you are a part of my personal life and have decided to step into this realm. And side note, if you are my personal friend or related to me in any way, especially my parents, shout out you mom and dad specifically, it is going to get very, very intense and very real, and I am going to be not holding back at all in any form, and I know a lot of it is going to be very difficult to hear if you love me. So just want to make sure that, yeah, don't be upset, okay? Okay, I love you. Everyone, thank you for watching. And let's unpack these bags, metaphorically. So, this is obviously not the garden room that you've seen previously. I decided to celebrate my birthday a week and a couple days early this year because I am very lucky to have been born during the Valentine's Day weekend phenomenon. So absolutely everyone is always busy, and there's always a lot of hullabaloo around my birthday just because of the Hallmark holiday, and everyone always tends to just gives me like Valentine's and chocolate and crap for my birthday. And this year I kind of wanted to do something a little different and feel a little different since I've been super duper depressed. And I want to touch on this specific depression as something that we don't always necessarily hear about or talk about, and that is creative depression, or depression for creators. And when we're so used to being productive and making and doing things all of the time, and then all of a sudden something happens to where we can't do that thing, or where we're no longer in the mood to do that thing, and what once used to light the fire now kind of drags us down into the pits of despair. It's really hard to describe, even harder to feel, and it's really important to me to make sure that everybody knows, who cares to know, I guess, that when I wake up in the morning, I do decide to try, and I have to decide to try. And it's very difficult for a lot of people to hear that I have to make the decision to live my life every single day, but it is very true. And I am a chef by trade, and I say that because I don't think I'm a chef actively, which probably is wrong, and everybody who knows me who just heard me say that is probably cringing behind this video, but it's true and it's how I feel. So yeah, I started working in kitchens and doing food stuff when I was really super young. I remember being really tiny and actually working with my mom and just like doing family events, because we had a huge family, and so we were just doing family events, and my grandparents ran churches and they're ministers, so my mom always did like the brunches and all the events and stuff for that sort of thing. And as soon as I was old enough to participate, I was basically fully involved and enthralled. And yeah, so the bug kind of took off really super early. I got my first paid kitchen job when I was 14, and it was super tight. I was working for a bakery, and then I started caregiving and babysitting for a family of 4 absolutely brilliantly, amazingly brilliant. Like, they're so talented in that family. Like, all of them are so talented, it literally makes you want to vomit. Like, you have no clue how incredible these kids are. One of them was actually on The Voice. I'm not going to give out their identity, but they're ridiculously talented family as an umbrella, as a whole. And then specifically those 4 children just knock it out of the park. So I started working with them, and they got a lot of random baked experiments really early, which was super cool for me, and they seemed to like it. And so after that, I decided to go full force and started working restaurants when I was 17. And I worked at a convention center in Ontario, California as well. I'm from Fontana, California. I was born in Puna, but raised in Fontana. And yeah, and so I worked in the IE until I was 19, and then I started working in LA, and I loved working in LA so much, but I wanted to get out of my house because I felt really trapped, and I didn't feel like I could be as creative as I wanted to be. I didn't feel like I could really expand and be myself. My family is really accepting, but they are at the base conservative, and I've always suffered from depression. Like, as long as I can remember, there's always been this looming realm of sadness. Started seeing a counselor when I was 11, so 3 years before I actually found one of the solutions that would have been later. But yeah, so from 14 to 24, I was max productive, and I had worked for Walt Disney World. I started moving around a lot. That's how I ended up in Seattle the first time. And I had just picked up my knives and drove places. I had gotten an externship at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida when I was in culinary school at 19. Shout out Le Cordon Bleu Pasadena campus, what up? There were a lot of chefs that I'll be mentioning as I go through these whole series of YouTube life, because I talk about them in my everyday life, and they are people who have impacted me, who kind of gave me the light at the end of the tunnel when I was completely buckled and crippled in my corner of despair. And at the same time, when I was 19, that's really when my body started acting up on me, and my mind was kind of going awry. So I decided to apply and compete my way into working in Orlando, Florida. And I got it, and I ended up going, and I was there for 3 seasons, as they call it. And yeah, I absolutely loved my externship, and I met so many awesome people, and I'll talk more about my time in Florida later. But leaving the house and being out of my parents' line of sight really is what it is kind of what gave me the inspiration and the freedom to go through and do and be myself. And I don't know what it is about my brain and being in this general realm of my family where I just can't create. And I don't know if anyone else suffers from this or like has this problem, but I just cannot bring myself to want to create when I'm around my family. I have this inherent need to take care of everything, and then I get overwhelmed by taking care of everything, and it just turns into this circular pattern of nothingness and counterproductivity when, well, at least it's how it feels, you know. I keep the house, or I try to, you know. I make food when I can. You know, depression sucks in that some days I wake up and I'm like gunning and I can do a 9-course tasting menu for one of my parents' clients, and it's no problem, knocked it out the bag, we're good. I'm gonna go eat a bowl of leftover stuff and we'll see you in the morning, no problem. And then there are days where I literally wake up so depressed that I get sick to my stomach. And part of it is a different chronic illness that we'll go into later. But it's just this like super circular feeling of physical illness and mental exhaustion and emotional fatigue. That's what I'll call it, because it's incredible. And it just started circulating. You know, around the time that I was 17, I kind of got the itch. It took me 2 years to get out. And then when I turned 24, I was working for a restaurant in Pasadena, California. I had made my way back around, and I got really sick. I actually had septicemia, so I had a full body infection. Like, my blood was impacted, my whole organs, it was a whole situation, everything but one of my lungs, kidney, and my heart had been completely impacted. So I had to have my organs scrubbed of infection and a whole thing. I was in ICU for 15 days, and it was incredibly terrible and altered pretty much everything about my life. I had to stop working for the first time. I had never not worked. I was going for 10 years, and almost exactly on the 10th anniversary of me doing stuff and making things and being chefly, as I would call it, you know, training to be a chef, on the almost exact 10-year day, I had to walk away from everything. I had to put my knives down and walk into an operating room and give up my whole life. And when I went into recovery, I just remember the doctor telling me that I wasn't going to be able to work, that I had to be careful even when I drove. I had a drain in my side. And he told me it would be somewhere in the realm of 4 and 5 years before I would really feel better and feel like myself again, and before my body would start recuperating completely. And that was in 2017. It's 2020 now. It is the 7th of February. And I actually went into surgery on my 24th birthday. So on the 17th of February, 2017, everything changed for me. And everyone is telling me to be strong and that I can get through this and that it's temporary. And I'm having a really hard time believing that it's temporary when it's been 3 years and I still feel like this, and I still feel like I can't do anything, and like I have a hard time just existing most days. The physical pain I don't even talk about to most people, you know. I try to explain to my best friend and he's very supportive, but he can only understand so much, you know, and he's also got his own stuff to worry about, and I feel extremely selfish every time I bring it up, but I can't help but need help. And I do have a therapist that I talk to, but she also encourages me to talk to people who are physically there in my daily life. And part of the circular issue is that my parents hate my best friend. And I live with them, so I can't just hang out with them. I can't just have them over. I can't just be like, hey, I'm going to see him, without some sort of weird animosity or what feels like a consequence, even though everyone tells me I don't get in trouble anymore. It definitely feels like I do. And it's really irritating to have to censor myself all of the time. You know, and I want to be respectful because I live in their house and everything, but part of what helps me most is medicating with cannabis. And there is going to be segments in which I talk about it, and possibly segments in which it's happening, and I'm not gonna censor that because this is what happens and how I live my life and how I feel better. And it keeps me off of other drugs, if I'm being honest, you know? Like, I had my foray, you know, and then I also had an uncle of mine, I won't say his name, but everyone who knows me personally knows what I'm talking about. He was super into meth when I was young, and he was my favorite uncle. I loved him. He took care of us. He raised us partially. He was our world. And to watch him completely melt and crumble and turn gray and see all of that was absolutely terrible. But as I got older and offered things and people, you know, found coping mechanisms, I understood why. I didn't like it, didn't accept it, also did not ever go down that route, but I understood, and I understand, and it's frustrating to me now as an adult because of a lot of things that I had to be exposed to, and a lot of things that I shouldn't have been exposed to, that were formulative moments and actual pinpoints of things I'm afraid of, or, you know, just factors of how I live my life in fear-based ways, as I've been going over in therapy. And it's all rooted in stuff that started when I was really super young, and it's dumb. I hate that, first and foremost. Really not okay with that part. And yeah, after 3 years of nothing, you know, you have to make decisions every day to actually be a good person. Like, you have to decide that, and it's a weird concept to be like, you have to decide to be a good, yeah, I have to decide to be a good person. Like, it's a conscious choice, and I make it constantly, and it's excruciating sometimes because I want to be rude and I want to tell everyone to fuck off and leave me alone and sit in my room in the dark for 3 days and do nothing but smoke weed, but I can't do that because I'm in an environment in which I live with my parents, so I have to get up and at least want to try to be okay. And it's not conducive to the creative process because you're using all of your energy to kind of put yourself together instead of allowing the broken pieces to translate into art, which is what I've really been wanting to do. And I have no, my brain won't allow me to do that. It's not that I'm not allowed to do it, it's just I'm in this blockade, you know? And that's why I'm making this video, because I need to make things. I need to feel productive, and this will be a 3rd video within a month, which I feel like that's fucking good. Like, I did that shit, you know? And I'm trying, and I'm participating, and I'm doing things, and this is gonna be spliced up because this is a whole thing that's gonna be a whole thing. But you know, we're getting there. And I'm trying, and that's all that matters, really, is that I'm trying, and that I'm hopefully pulling myself out of this rut. I'm not gonna lie, I listed my pottery wheel for sale this week like an idiot. And I had total remorse about it this morning on a plane. I had to go to cry. Because I'm so confused about what I'm doing and what I want and what's happening. Because it all feels really fake, and like I'm trying super duper hard for nothing, for no reason. Like, I shouldn't even be trying. Like, what are you trying for? What's the point? So I'm going to do my makeup in efforts of feeling a little better. And I'm in my favorite city in the goddamn world, which is Las Vegas, Nevada. So I'm gonna go and get some cool content, and then I'm gonna enjoy the hell out of my life. I'm gonna smoke some weed, and I'm gonna actually relax and enjoy myself for the first time in probably 6 months since I was here in May. It's been more than 6 months since May, but I'm excited, and I'm never excited about anything anymore, so I think that matters. And hopefully by the end of the night I will have decided whether or not I'm going to continue this pottery journey, or whether I'm actually going to reply to the email in which someone wants to buy my wheel. Why is it so hard to be a human with emotions? Why is it so hard to be creative? Why is it so hard? Does anyone have answers? I don't even know. Well, the next chapter, and on to happier things. Yeah.